Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for this segment of the Surface Navy Association's Continuing the Conversation series. The Surface Navy Association was incorporated in 1985 and is an enlisted and officer organization that provides our members support programs and various activities that enable professional growth, personal satisfaction, and camaraderie. And we do this through scholarships, grants, awards, symposiums, and shows like today. Our guest today is Chief Hull Technician Justin Duff, recipient of the 2020 USS Constitution George Sirian Meritorious Service Award. For more than 2 centuries, our nation has looked at the USS Constitution and been inspired by the dedicated service of the surface warriors that have sailed and fought in her defense for freedom. George Sirian was one of those such warriors who served his country in distinction for nearly half a century. First as an ordinary seaman, and then later as a master gunner and warrant officer. George Sirian's service included multiple tours on USS Constitution, and his leadership, technical expertise, and devotion to duty set the standard by which our chief petty officers are measured today. This award recognizes the continuation of George Sirian's historic spirit of excellence in today's chief petty officers. And this award is normally presented during the CPO training aboard the USS Constitution. Due to the COVID situation, that event was canceled. Fortunately, Chief Duff was still presented a ceremony at his command in Japan before transferring to Norfolk. And we have a short 40-second video of that award presentation we'd like to share with you now.
So, Chief Duff, on behalf of the USS Constitution Chapter, this is the George Sirian Meritorious Service Award. I just want to say congratulations. This is probably one of the most prestigious awards you can get for leadership. And congratulations. I mean, I hope you carry this with pride. And just know that this is a true dedication to not only to the command, but to the sailors that you lead on the deck plates day in, day out. So once again, congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Captain.
Sure. Chief, along with that certificate comes probably the best part of this, and that's the cutlass engraved with your name, the award, and the date stamped on it as well. So congratulations.
Wow. Thank you, sir.
So, Chief Duff, on behalf of the USS Constitution Chapter, this is the George Sirian Meritorious Service Award.
Congratulations, Chief Duff, and thank you for joining us today. Now, and I love that cutlass, by the way. That was a great presentation. Now you, as we saw in the video, recently served with Naval Beach Unit 7 in Sasebo, Japan, and recently transferred to Mid-Atlantic Regional Maintenance Center in Norfolk. Is that correct?
Yes, Joe. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the Surface Navy Association finding time and putting this event together. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm back here in Norfolk. This is my first duty station. Back in 2007, I was here to 2010. So it's great to be back. Marmac is a great place, doing a lot of great work.
Well, I'm happy to have you back there in Norfolk, and obviously great to have you back at Marmac. I did hear from your command master chief, and you know he was pretty excited to have you on board, and also sends his congratulations for this prestigious award. Now, you seem very proud of being an AHT as well as a chief. What inspired you to come into that rating?
Well, Joe, you know, that's a good question, and that brings me back to humble beginnings. In 2006, I was working a general labor welding job there in East Texas, and I talked to my uncle that had spent probably 6 years in the Army back in the 90s. I was talking to him on the phone and trying to figure out, you know, what I was going to do next and what I was going to kind of do with my life, you know, normal 19-year-old. And he had mentioned the Navy. So that kind of stuck with me a little bit. Fast forward probably 2 or 3 months after that, I found myself at a recruiting office there in Tyler, Texas. But at that point, I didn't know what an HT was. I didn't know what a rate was. I remember opening that door, and I was ready and willing for an opportunity. And you know, that foundation, I was ready to be a cook. I was ready to be, you know, a janitor. It didn't matter what it was at that time. Being a previous recruiter, you know, my recruiter did his recruiting magic and you know, used his skills and said, well, hey, what do you do now? And I said, well, you know, I'm a general welder here at a assembly line local. He said, well, I got the job for you. Sign here. So there I went as being a whole maintenance technician. So yeah, it was, but a lot of credit due to my family and their guidance in that regard, and so much in debt to that and that recruiting station there, and my recruiter, and I owe it. So
That's a lovely, you know, shout out to your uncle and to your family. I agree. You know, a lot of our sailors, you know, young sailors coming in today have that family influence, and some come in undesignated. So what would you say to that young undesignated sailor out there listening about becoming an HT, and what's it like to be an HT, and what would you tell them about it?
well, for our pack sailors, you know, as we know, to be undesignated, you know, I take it back to when I first walked through the recruiting station door. You know, we all have a why, and you know, why are we doing what we do? Who is looking up to us or looking after us, to kind of pave the way? Um, and like I said, being a previous recruiter, seen a lot of people come through the recruiting station that has a lot of different scenarios and you know, kind of pressures and things that they're trying to overcome. So I would tell that sailor early on, what is that why? And don't forget that. You know, because there's challenges too with you know, getting into ratings, even as a pack sailor. But being an HT, I mean, we have a huge return on our investment. We get to see, you know, fruits of our labor. What I mean by that is, you know, if you know, whether you're on a carrier and a steam valve is leaking, you got to, you know, cut it out and replace it and weld it. Then the operation, you know, still keeps going. Or it could be something as you're on a DDG or somewhere and the galley drain pipe is clogged and the CSs cannot, you know, continue to cook food for the crew. So those types of things, whether it's from the bottom of the keel, the hull, the superstructure, everything in between, the HT has something to do with it. You know, so that's very exciting. We're very prideful and pretty competitive when it comes to that. So that's you know, that's what I would suggest to a young sailor that's undesignated looking to be an HT. But most and foremost for all sailors and junior sailors is not to forget that why.
Yes, and you know, when you have the skill set that you learn as an HT, like many other ratings, but particularly in your rating, boy, you can sure carry that out into the civilian world, and translate that with certificates and so forth, as well as all the other things that you learn peripheral, you know, in your role. I want to talk about that. You have managed many programs over your career, including, as mentioned, a little bit, you know, with your role as an HT, 3M, DAPA, CPO, Association Elected Roles, Selected Training, Production Officer, PO Indoc, Mentorship Program, and so many more. How do you balance your primary role as a technician, as an HT and a leading chief, to your role with collaterals, as well as your home life? I mean, it's just so many things. How do you balance all that?
Well, it's hard and difficult at times, but first and foremost, it's the sailors. It's a supporting cast around us, our chief's mess, our great chief's mess, and leadership around our organization and at multiple commands. Um, it's a balance. One thing with that is empowering others and training others, getting them on board with our mission requirements, with different objectives. A lot of collaterals are within the command organization that are pretty vital. And with that, bringing alongside others and giving them the information and the training, then they can go and expand to their sailors and give them the resources they might need later on. So that's kind of the beauty of it. Balancing it is kind of dividing time, what's urgent, what's important, but really instilling and empowering and training others, and kind of it allows us to leverage our time in other places. So yeah, it's hard, but awareness, communication, awareness, looking downrange, controlling the controllables. That's a big part of it. If we have something coming up, whether it be an inspection or anything that is going to require people to accomplish that, getting ahead of it and training and being aware of that ahead of time kind of alleviates some artificial pressure, as I like to call it. And then communicating the expectation, and then obviously training. So kind of divide and conquer those roles, and really rely on others, but still holding your piece of the puzzle. But definitely the supporting cast, whether it be junior sailors, peers, chief's mess, wardroom, upper leadership. That's how all this comes together.
Takes a village, right?
Yeah.
So, with all of the experiences that you've had so far and so much more to experience in the future, what would you say at this point in your career would be your top 3 lessons learned?
So, top 3 lessons learned. One is they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when we talk about people and we talk about sailors, another one is, don't weigh others with a different scale than you'd weigh yourself. So using the same 2 scales, across the board. And another one is you don't know what you don't know. So when situations or circumstances come about, taking that time out, solicit feedback, and really get to know the situation before kind of thinking that you may know what you know. A couple other things are routine. Things are routine. Sticking to the basics. Do your job. A basic one that I love is just do your job. So another one is this word try, and going back to my recruiting days, I love recruiting, if you can't tell, but going back to my recruiting days, there would be applicants to say, yeah, I'm trying to join the Navy. So they'd be holding the pen. I say, well, try to drop it. And they would drop it. And I'll say, well, you dropped it. You didn't try to drop it. That's what, so the trying is almost like a pretense to failure. It's either we're going to sit out and we're going to do it, and we're going to have the tools and resources, and we're going to train to it, and we're going to, collaborate, and we're going to move forward in that regard. But yeah, so those are some things that has kind of stuck out to me along the way.
With those lessons learned, I'm going to do a side question here for you out of that. A lot of our young sailors, this is, their first job. Some come with experience like you did in a previous job. So when you talk about the try, how hard is it for you as a chief to find that struggle in that sailor and kind of get them on that right path? You know, when do you recognize that they're not just trying, but they really do want to succeed, but they don't know how? How do you recognize that in a young sailor just starting out in a new environment like the Navy? How do you recognize that they really are trying? They're not goofing off or not, not paying attention. They really are trying.
Yes, that's a great question, Joe. And like you mentioned a few seconds ago, it takes a village. So it really relying on those sailors' frontline leadership to identify those things. Obviously, as the chief, knowing and recognizing your people, and that requires time, that requires conversations, that requires feedback, that requires things like midterm counselings and getting to know that person, that young sailor, and why they're doing what they're doing. And I totally agree that I don't believe any sailor is just waking up and not trying to do the best that they can do. So with that, that constant engagement, whether it be training, whether it be OJT, whether it just be a quick conversation, and that will make all the difference when the sailor is not. And then we'll identify where maybe the area to improve maybe, and then go from there and address it that way, and continue to march forward.
That's a great answer. And I absolutely love the midterm counseling and getting to know the sailor, because, you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
as you said earlier,
Yeah.
until you ask. So I appreciate that. And that will lead me into my next question. We often have heard, I take care of sailors, let's take care of sailors, but what is the difference between taking care of sailors and then training sailors to take care of themselves?
So I would like to start with the last question, part of that first, because with that, training them to take care of themselves is something that we learn day one in boot camp. Our first few weeks in boot camp, it's all about our little piece of the puzzle, and that self-leadership. Young junior sailors may say, well, I've never led anybody. But my immediate response is, you lead yourself. And that's probably one of the most important, one of the top most important keys is learning to lead yourself. So I consider every sailor that wears our nation's cloth to be a leader in that regard. Everyone is leading themselves. Sticking to the basics goes a long ways. We learn to put our uniform on, learn to be on time. Sticking to the basics, that will carry on to essentially taking care of themselves, because we have a huge support network within our lifelines, within our great organization, that has a lot of resources to help sailors. But if they suit up and show up, and they're motivated and they're willing, then we have something that can help them, take care of themselves in that regard. But I definitely, communication again, is key. But taking care of sailors, that's what that's what chiefs do. And we utilize our resources in our great chiefs mess to take care of sailors, and also I love LPOs. I love the first classes. I love the first class organization throughout our Navy, and empowering those frontline leaders with some of the same guidance and tools and resources to carry on to them, so they can have those in their toolboxes to start that early mentorship, so to speak.
I think that's great, and identifying the difference between the two, because I don't want sailors to think I'm here to take care of you, you know, that and take care of all your problems and take care of all your woes and take care of your life for you. I think you touched on it very well about taking care of sailors, meaning taking care of the tools and the time and the opportunities that they need to grow so that they can take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding the difference in those two. So thank you for that experience. So we've talked about being an HT, and you've talked a little bit, you know, about being the chief and a lot about being the recruiter, which is recruiters, because without recruiters, I wouldn't have joined the service. But your current role now, what excites you most about your current role?
So right here in Norfolk, Virginia, at Marmac, we have a lot of great, talented sailors doing a lot of great things daily, and it's a state-of-the-art facility, you know, with awesome leadership across the board, with the CMC, XO, CO. Our chief's message is huge and has a lot of resources and great leadership in there. But when it comes down to the deck plates, our motto here at Marmac is "We fix ships." So they're grinding daily. A lot of ships on the waterfront and shipyards that need some love and repairs, and they're doing it, and they're knocking doors down, and they're totally completing the mission. Here too is one of the largest, going back to being an HT, is probably one of the largest concentration of shore-based HTs. So that's pretty awesome in that regard. Getting back to a lot of HT love and a lot of HT, repairs and doing our job. And that's what, is pretty awesome to see. But Marmac is great. Like I said, state-of-the-art facility, a lot of work going on. So
I love being excited about, a new duty station and all the, prospects that are ahead. And it's great mentioning too, the largest concentration of HTs and a lot of the HT love there, and probably an amazing training environment, regardless of pay grade, even as a chief, learning from the young HTs and their own experiences and stuff, and then being able to take that to the fleet.
Absolutely. And seeing them blossom from Marmac, and then they transfer to a ship on the waterfront, and then they're around, and then you're on board with another job and you see them. So it's awesome.
So all of these things that you've talked about and your experiences and your advice and wisdom, I can definitely see how this led to your recognition with the George Sirian Award, and that has a very recent history, the George Sirian Award. And I know the two Force Master Chiefs are, Pacific and Atlantic are sending their congratulations. And there's one particular congratulations that I'd like to read right now for you then, and for our audience, because I just love how this came about. So this says, "Congratulations, HTC Duff, on being selected as our George Sirian Meritorious Service Awardee of 2020. Thank you for your outstanding service and Navy career. We are very proud of you. Special thanks to the Surface Master Chiefs for running the annual selection process at the force level. 20 years ago, the USS Constitution chapter board members met in the offices of the CO of the USS Constitution to brainstorm the idea of a special award for an active duty enlisted surface warrior that could leverage the heritage of old Ironsides. You are among the select group of only 18 top-notch sailors to have received what has come to be known and respected Navy-wide, and particularly in the Chiefs community, as this prestigious George Sirian Award. And that's from Bill Mouser, Captain, U.S. Navy retired, the President, Surface Navy Association, USS Constitution Chapter.
Wow. Wow.
I think that sums it up a lot, because there aren't many awards out there for recognition of chief petty officers, and chiefs don't necessarily
Yeah, it's
that recognition and are kind of, are humbled by, that recognition. And it's hard to accept. And so I know that this is very hard for you to accept, but
yes, it is.
there's also, a good feeling to be recognized on behalf of chief petty officers. So there's a mix of emotion there, but I want you to know that the chiefs are proud of you and proud of your representation. So thank you for what you're doing. Now,
Thank you.
Bill Mouser has a question for you, and he is asking, who were your career mentors and how did they influence your success?
Well, I have several mentors throughout the way, as probably a lot of us do. Early on, as a young fireman on board my first ship, there was a HT1 that was towards the end of his career there, but he really kind of just pulled me along the side, kind of, grabbed me by the neck and said, "Hey, come on," and I didn't really know. It was what's cool and what's beautiful about the mentorship relationship is that some things really doesn't stick until maybe a little bit later on. So that was one of those mentorship relationships. It was because I was real young in age and I was young in the Navy. And he was delivering a lot of stuff and giving a lot of guidance. I took it all in, but I just, some of the things I didn't understand until later on. So forever grateful for that. Actually, I need to mention going early on in my career, one of my first chief petty officers, he ended up making senior chief and retiring, but now he is one of our zone managers here at Marmac. But Jamie Hopper, retired HT senior chief. I'm not sure if he really knows this, but he shaped my career early on into the fact that we went into dry dock, RCOH, after my first deployment there. And as you know, in dry dock, there's a lot of people that get sent TAD, and there's a lot of other stuff going on. But I had an opportunity to transfer, and it was kind of an early transfer. But he sat down in his office and told me, "Hey, I just made second class." He said, "Get out of here, go to a small ship, be the tip of the spear. We're here in dry dock." And I don't know but that really just stuck with me. And I just bought a house here in Virginia early on, but ended up going down to the USS Way City, down in Mayport, Florida. So that was early on the mentorship for me, that really kind of hit me in the heart and really took it on board. But I want to comment on the mentor-mentee relationship, because half of it is the mentor giving you the guidance, but the other half is the mentee actually being willing to kind of execute that guidance and to follow the guidance. But yeah, moving forward, I mean, still active duty, DC Master Chief Quincy Crockett. He was my DCC on board. Another DCC I had on board now, DC Master Chief Andre Banis, down there on the USS Way City. Shane Hammond, another HT as a chief. So a lot of great mentorship conversations there, and a lot of You know, a lot of great sage advice. Another one that's retired is a DCC, Larry Ellington. He was actually at first class for the majority of my time on there, but he actually pulled me alongside as well. But he ended up making chief. In recruiting, NCCS retired. Brian Murray. I just I texted another day, but yeah, phenomenal leader, that really just you know, I really took to. But out at MBU 7, Command Master Chief Lamar Bethel. You know, I love that man like he was part of my family, and has taught me so much. HT Master Chief Tony Alves, retired chief out there that's a civilian right now, Mr. Fred Miller, a great brother and friend of mine. So, you know, across the board, there's been, and I'm leaving out some people, but that mentorship piece to me, Joe, is really crucial. And there's a lot of other people along the way that have gave guidance, and it may have just been a 5-minute conversation. And I consider that to be that mentorship, you know, relationship, and taking that and moving forward and trying to pass and deliver that on to others. So kind of emotional, taking me back, some of those things, but the mentorship, you know, that is very important.
You know, and some mentors don't, like you said, that sometimes that 5-minute conversation, some mentors don't realize that they are someone's mentor. And particularly with our first classes and chiefs, you know, it just takes a minute, and that one inspiring or that one, even that hard, you know, corrective advice sometimes can last a lifetime. So you brought up some very good points about being vigilant about what you say in an environment to your young sailors that are listening to every word as a LPO, as a work center soup, as the chief, division officer. They're listening, and that one nugget of advice is going to last a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes that negative, you know, tone can last a lifetime too. So.
Yeah.
But it is emotional when you talk about your mentors. So, you know, to our sailors out there that are looking for mentors, that aren't really accustomed yet to having a mentor, what advice would you give to them about how to choose a mentor? What do you look for in a mentor?
So, and that's great, because and as you can see, I love it. And so for junior sailors, it's we have our rating, and we have our technical side, but then, as we kind of alluded to before, then we have all these other things, these other obligations that we call life and family and extracurricular activities and off-duty educate, you know, all these things, buying a house, you know, mentioned, you know. So early on, I always suggest that we look for, kind of compartmentalize them with the mentors, and look for somebody maybe in your rate that you may be looking for more technical guidance and more kind of OJT or whatever that may be. But then also, like if I had a HTFN talking to me right now about this, I would say go find a BM or aviation or something that maybe has something that you want, or maybe they just bought a house and you're looking to buy a house, or maybe they're getting outstandings on their PRT and they're fit and you're getting into working out, you know, that really has nothing to do with a specific rate. So I always kind of suggest the other side of the coin when it comes to mentorship is it's not always about, you know, kind of somebody in our communities. We can learn a lot and a lot of different tools and resources during that mentorship, you know, relationship that is very valuable. And that also allows them a chance to get out and kind of flex their wings, and talk to other people, and other sailors, and kind of, see the beauty of our organization, and one of that is diversity, so.
That's a great segue into my next question, in that diversity, not only in the Navy, but diversity in learning. So what would you say is important about expanding your learning and your experiences with collateral duties and off-duty education, and how does that help you be a better sailor and prepared to go at sea, and especially those collateral duties that you normally wouldn't have taken on, but your chief says, or the CMC says, hey, I want you to take on this collateral duty, and you're like, ugh, that is something I'm not interested in. But what's important about taking something on that's different and expanding your learning outside of your community?
Well, within the people I'm around, I like to break down the stigma behind collaterals, and that they're kind of this bad thing. As kind of mentioned before, I can't think of really too many collateral duties that are not vital to the command's organization and structure, and part of the organization is completing that mission. So I try to break down that barrier to begin with, but also too, as before, as in mentorship and finding different mentors, is that now you're in a collateral duty and you're learning something else and another resource. Let's say it is a CFL or DAPA or SAPR or SEMIO, or, now you're learning tools and resources that now you can come back to the division, the work center, the shop, and now you can, hand off those tools and that information down to your sailors and your people that you're around. So it kind of grows like that. So, and also if somebody's asking you to do it, it's probably important. I don't know of too many things we ask sailors to do that's not really important, so collateral duties, I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as a chance and an opportunity to grow in different areas, but not hold on to the growth, but then give it to others, and expand their knowledge and their awareness, and go back to the training side of the house. With off-duty education and our continuous learning, that we do within the Navy, it kind of goes back to that recruiting station door when we first walked in. We didn't have the mindset of, I don't want to learn anything else. I don't want to continue to better myself. I don't want to continue to grow in off-duty education. So, with our programs and assistance out there with off-duty education, it's certainly out there for an opportunity that I certainly didn't have at 19 years old when I first joined. So again, maximizing the opportunities, not forgetting the why of why you're here. And part of that is probably bettering yourself. And when it comes to off-duty education, we're expanding our perspectives, our horizons, and as we move around, not only in the Navy and move up or in life, then we have different experiences and different things and different value to add to others. So I do think it's important, even if it's a NAV trade tech manual review, or whether it's a GMT or a PME, whether it's an actual college course, those things, going through the process, and we actually get to see that we achieve something on that as well. So then that's going to better help our self-leadership when it comes to talking about that earlier. Is now we have achieved something, we have something to offer somebody else, and then it boosts our self-esteem and our motivation to be better. We've done it, now we can help other people to do it.
Spot on. I mean, I could have said it better myself. I remember when I was a young AC3, and my chief at the time said, okay, you're going to be the pub's petty officer and you'll have, that involves updating all the publications and stuff. And it was my first collateral duty. And I thought, God, he trusts me. Take this on, this was a really big time. Sure, at the time he was thinking, okay, who's new and we're going to give this to you. I was very excited about my first collateral duty, and it was a lot. But what it did was it got me into the publications and learned, make the changes. And while I was making the changes, I read the updates, and I learned how to read publications. So, to my first mentor, Chief Chilson, thank you so much. He really inspired me with collaterals back then, and I agree that they are a great balance for learning and get your mind, learning something new. When you sub-optimize and you focus just on your one area, yes, you get technically expert, but you can also get vacuumed into that and not be aware of the peripherals and not see something new. And I think having that collateral duty, kind of expands that puzzle, in your mind to put some other pieces there. So when you are having trouble, say as an HT, understanding something or learning something or doing something, when you're doing this other collateral and your mind is, filling in these pieces to the jigsaw puzzle, it can give you an aha moment, go, oh, I learned how to do this with the collateral. Maybe I can apply this to, this trouble I'm having in the rating. So, I think you summed that up very well with some examples. So with that, we're not always successful. If we did everything right every time, every day, with everything, we wouldn't need higher education. So sometimes I've failed, and I want to ask you, have you failed at anything, and how do you recover from failure? And is failure good sometimes?
So outstanding question, Joe. So I want to say that failure is an event, not a person. And I want to talk about the process and not the prize or the product a little bit before I get into failure. A lot of times leading up to what we may deem as a failure, there's a process behind that. And a lot of things lead up to that quote unquote failure event. So what I like to look at and be aware of is the process. The process of, whether that be awareness, communication, training, feedback, debriefs, part of the process was probably something was broken down or something was missing. And it might have been that training moment that the work center soup or the LPO or even the chief may have missed, that led on into what we see as a failure. And it's really, it really boils down to that feedback and that collaboration to me. Just like when we run drills on board a ship, we go through the process, we have a pre-brief, we run the drill, and then we have a debrief, kind of the lessons learned. Now we may have done all the training aspects right, went through the process of the evolution, but it may be deemed a failure. But then that lessons learned is where the shortfalls were at, and then training to those shortfalls so it doesn't happen again. And what I love about the failure, concept or picture when we talk about failure is I almost immediately take that and then look at other scenarios that may fall in line with that, and then immediately train and guide and ask for feedback and collaboration in regards to that same scenario so it doesn't happen again. So it's failures are not bad. Going back to your question, one part of your question, it's what we do on the back end of the failure situation. And again, I believe it's not a single person that is, you know, a failure, so to speak. There's a lot of supporting cast. There's a lot of stuff that goes into a lot of situations. Even if a sailor is off duty and something happens, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So that failure piece is what we do on the back end. And you know, there's a lot of you know, leaders in the civilian community that talk about failure is a chance to begin. That's an opportunity for us to start and to learn. So also, for me personally, I probably fell more personally than maybe somebody else would see, because I set my expectations high. But yeah, I think it's all about how we intake the failure. If we take the failure and we completely fold and we just give up, throw our hands up, and we don't do anything about it, I think that's kind of the fork in the road. Because failure, a lot of times for me anyway, is that opportunity to examine and then to learn from it, and then to seek out the mentorship, seek out the mentor and say, hey, you know, this is what happened. Here's where I went wrong. You know, what's up? I'm ready for it, you know. But then again, being willing to take that feedback, even if it's not what I want to hear, or maybe what the sailor wants to hear, but being willing to take that, chew on it a little bit, pick yourself up, move forward, and then let others know. A lot of this to me is feedback and collaboration and communication, you know, across the board, so others don't make that mistake when we talk about failure. If we're having new failures every day, I mean, to me, that's a win to me. Now, if it's the same ones over and over again, you know, all right, I'll stop, training time out, like, you know, what's going on? Where are we at in this process? So I love the process of when it comes to anything. I completely love the process more than the outcome, because if we focus and we kind of hone in our craft and our skills and are good at the process, then we don't really have to worry about the product, so to speak.
So what do you want to share about your one of the failures in your life and how you recovered?
Well, you know, early on, I actually dropped out of high school, and I have a GED. Now, currently, I'm 2 classes away from my associates. But you know, and I let that part be known to others as well, and I kind of say I have a good enough diploma, you know, with the GED. But you know, early on, that actually plagued me into you know, where I was going to go from there, you know, and I looked at that as being a failure. You know, I let myself down, I let other people down. But then again, when I was ready and willing, I was looking for the opportunity when I joined the Navy, and I said for many years, and probably not so long ago, if the Navy sends me to Baker School right now to learn how to bake rolls, like, I'm going to be the best, you know, roll baker. You know, it's just that, because that's an opportunity I didn't have at 19 years old with the GED. And now that opportunity is, and it would be, you know, almost a shame for me not to take advantage. And then some people might see that as, you know, I don't say that to try to be any better than anybody, but that's part of my why, and that failure really shaped me into what it is today. And that's just I'm forever grateful for a lot of those opportunities. You know, and failure is what started that. And I'm just glad now that with the mentors and some experience and people around me, that when failure does present, it doesn't just fold me up, you know. So my biggest advice on the failure again is what we do and learn from it, and then it's our reset to start again.
I love that restarting. Absolutely agree with you 100%. And that, yeah, sometimes small failures are important to know what great success looks like.
Mhm.
So on that note, let's make this last question for you today about your proudest moments as a chief. What's been your proudest moment as a chief?
It's seeing sailors advance, seeing you know your sailors win awards and Blue Jacket of the Quarters and MAP and you know advancing and you know, so that's a huge part of you know, my proudest moments is seeing those sailors you know achieve what they've been striving you know to achieve, and then you know sprinkling in a little bit of help here and there, you know, and helping them along the way. That has been proud too. Obviously, you know, our chief initiation, you know, that is, I love that portion of our organization. And that's been some of my proudest moments is going through the process of that initiation and on the back end, seeing the transformation, you know, and that's a beautiful thing to me. And every year that we have a chief penny, you know, that's pretty emotional for me. Another proud moment for me was being able to partake in a retirement ceremony for one of my great friends, EMCS retired Rich Basher. You know, so that was a pretty proud moment for me as a chief. But definitely going back full circle is the sailors being able to advance and being able to win awards and seeing them and kind of back it up a little bit, maybe not so much the ceremonials type of seeing them advance, but as you mentioned before, having the sailor kind of overcome their own, you know, kind of roadblocks and barriers, and then getting over to the other side. But just being able to help people, you know, whether it be you know, with a collateral duty or LCPO or just anybody in general, and seeing that on the back end is really, really great. And that's part of my proudest moments of being a chief.
Love that. And I think every chief would agree with you that their proudest moments, they share your same sentiment about watching sailors succeed and get over their own roadblocks and have that aha moment. And so really quick, we do have one more question for you from our viewers, and I'm going to see if I can get this name right. From Synthol Fuada.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most challenging experience for you as a junior sailor?
Well, I actually served with that sailor, and thank you for the question. So as a junior sailor, you know, the challenging thing for me as a junior sailor would be probably some of the same conversations that we're having now and the same questions, but not being able to utilize resources and not knowing what to do at that time. And then, but just the continuous grind of the day in, day out, you know, and being deployed and, you know, things like that. So probably the biggest challenge was just not giving up or folding in, and just keep going, and knowing that hard work pays off in the end. So another one of my mentors, told me that early on, and I didn't get that. I didn't, at that moment, because I always thought, hey, if I do this, then this is going to happen, and kind of the immediate, immediate rewards from that. But that really didn't pan out that way. But you say, you know what? It might be 6 months from now, it might be 10 years from now, it might be, when you're 60. But if you continue the grind, continue to push forward. And maybe the biggest challenge with that too, Joe, was just trusting the process, and moving forward. So hard work does pay off in the end. We just don't know when we're going to reap the benefits.
I love that challenge. Yes. We don't know when we're going to reap rewards or see the reward of anything that we do and we experience. And that is a great point of a challenge, especially as a young sailor, of understanding that the rewards or the fruition of your product doesn't come right away, and it takes time. And so I appreciate that. So we're going to wrap up our series today with some shout outs. And first and foremost, let me thank you for everything that you've done in your career and the sailors that you're leading, and what you're about to do with this adventure in Norfolk and your new command. And look forward to seeing you continue to do great things, and look forward to seeing how the young sailors can reap the benefit of your experiences and your wisdom and advice. And thank you for training them and training our future. And congratulations again on this great award. And I know it's humbling as a chief, but accept the recognition widely. So I'm going to offer you a shout out as we wrap up our show. Who's your shout out to?
Well, I have a few, and I'll make it quick, Joe. I want to thank you. I want to thank Mr. Bill Mauser, the Surface Navy Association, the USS Constitution, George Sirian's family, awesome sailor and leader in those regards. All the nominees and submissions for this award. My MBU7 family and leadership out in the Far East. And the current command here, Marmax's leadership has been fully supported, and the sailors here, civilians on site. So thank you so much.
And my shout out is to all of our petty officers taking the March Advancement exam. My best wishes to you, and in the spirit of not failing, if you're not selected off this exam, you didn't fail. You need to pursue and try again. Many of us get selected on the first try, including this Fleet Master Chief. So congratulations to you all for being eligible, and study and take that exam. Sending you positive vibes. And to our audience, thank you for joining us today here at Continuing the Conversation, our Surface Navy Association series. Join us next week on the 17th of March when we have the Learn, Lead, and Laugh, the straight talk from surface women from the Coast Guard and from the United States Navy. We'll see you next week, and thank you, Chief. Thank you to our audience, and we'll see you next week.